actually going to get the most out of the Polk Audio Reserve Series R700 tower speaker with the R900 height module, and who can safely skip it? If you're trying to decide whether this is a sensible upgrade for your living room or a waste of hard-earned cash, keep listening. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I'm going to walk you through the moments when a speaker like this really shines, where it can feel under-delivered, and how the price lines up with everyday listening needs. First off, let's talk about the hesitation that comes with any high-end floor-standing speaker. You've probably watched a few slick videos where a massive cabinet spits out crystal-clear sound, but the real question is, will that kind of performance stand up in a typical 12 by 15-foot living room, not a showroom? The Polk Reserve R700 promises exceptional audio performance with Hi-Res Audio and Dolby Atmos certification, and the extra R900 height module claims to add a multi-dimensional feel. Those buzzwords sound impressive, but the practical side is whether you'll actually hear a difference sitting on a couch, and whether the price tag fits your budget after accounting for the extra module, speaker stands, and maybe a new amp. I spent a few evenings setting this up in my own space, which is a fairly average apartment with hardwood floors and a modest home theater 5.1 system. I placed the R700 towers on sturdy speaker stands, angled them just a few degrees toward the listening position, and tucked the R900 height modules onto top of the towers as the spec suggests. The first thing I noticed was the sheer presence of the cabinets. They're tall, well-dressed, and they blend nicely with a modern core. That's the first practical strength. You get an elegant look that doesn't scream audio nerd. The design is subtle enough that it won't dominate your wall, but still feels like a premium piece. Now, diving into sound. With a standard Blu-ray movie like Mad Max, Fury Road, the R700S delivered a solid bass foundation and a clear mid-range that kept dialogue intelligible even during the most chaotic chase scenes. The added height modules did something subtle but noticeable. Overhead effects, like the sound of a helicopter passing overhead or rain falling, seemed more immersive. It wasn't a cinema-level thunderstorm, but it added a layer that gave a sense of space without overwhelming the front speakers. For music, I tested a couple of classic rock tracks and a modern pop album. The guitars and vocals sat nicely in the front, while the height modules contributed a faint lift to the synth pads and backing vocals, making the mix feel a touch more open. One of the practical weaknesses shows up when you try to use this pair as part of a full home theater setup. The R700 is tuned for a fairly warm, full-bodied sound, which works great for movies, but if your main system already includes high-end floor speakers, you might find the tonal character a little redundant. In other words, if you already own a set of speakers that are already delivering that room-filling experience, adding the R700 could end up sounding like you've just duplicated the same frequency response rather than expanding your soundstage. For someone building a system from the ground up, the R700 makes sense as a centerpiece. For a seasoned audiophile with a more mature system, it may be an unnecessary overlap. Another point to consider is the amp requirement. The Reserve series is not a low-impedance, easy-driving speaker. It expects a solid, clean power source. If you're currently using a small integrated amp or a budget receiver, you may find the R700 demanding more current than your unit can comfortably supply. In my case, I upgraded to a slightly more robust 100 watt per channel receiver, which removed any strain and allowed the speakers to breathe. If you're on a tighter budget and don't want to upgrade the rest of your chain, that could be a hidden cost that pushes the overall price beyond what you initially thought. Let's talk about the value proposition. The R700 alone is priced in the mid to high three-figure range, and the R900 height module adds another chunk on top. Compared to other brands in the same tier, Polk's pricing is relatively competitive, especially if you factor in the aesthetic and the dual-module design that's often sold separately by competitors. But the value really comes from how you plan to use them. If your primary listening goal is movie nights with a Dolby Atmos-enabled system, the height module becomes more than a gimmick. It's a functional piece that helps you meet the Atmos ceiling requirement without buying separate upfiring speakers. For pure music lovers who don't need overhead effects, you could arguably skip the R900 and still enjoy a high-quality tower speaker. In that scenario, the extra cost of the module might feel like an unearned expense. Who should buy these? First, anyone building a new home theater system who wants a clean, integrated way to hit the height channel without cluttering the room with separate ceiling mounts. Second, people who appreciate a speaker that can blend into a living room aesthetic while still delivering a